If you believe the American legal system is designed to hold everyone accountable, then what just happened with Donald Trump is historic. For the first time, the Supreme Court of the United States made a ruling that significantly limits the legal protections a former president might rely on. This is not about politics or opinion. It is about how the law works and how institutions apply it when they are tested. The court's decision does not convict or accuse anyone, but it removes the legal strategies that had delayed proceedings for years. For supporters, critics, and legal observers alike, this is a moment that demands attention. It shows that the rules that govern the highest office in the country are real, enforceable, and apply to everyone. The Supreme Court's decision addresses the question of presidential immunity and executive privilege after leaving office. Over the years, former presidents and their legal teams have often argued that certain actions taken while in office are protected, even after leaving the White House. These arguments can delay investigations, slow prosecutions, and provide leverage in civil and criminal cases. In Trump's situation, these strategies had been used to slow down multiple ongoing investigations. However, the Supreme Court's ruling clarified that these protections are not unlimited. Legal experts note that while sitting presidents have some protections, those protections largely end when a president leaves office. This is an important distinction that removes ambiguity and sets a precedent for the future. The ruling itself was unanimous. All 9 justices agreed that the previous interpretations of immunity that Trump's lawyers were relying on were too broad. Even the 3 justices appointed by Trump joined the majority. This is significant because it shows that the decision was based on legal reasoning rather than political affiliation or loyalty. The court emphasized that no individual, regardless of position, is above the law when private or personal conduct is in question. While the opinion is detailed and complex, its essence is simple. Former presidents cannot use claims of immunity to avoid legal accountability for actions outside their official duties. For Trump, the ruling removes the core argument that his legal team had been relying on to delay proceedings. Previously, his lawyers could argue that certain cases, particularly those involving actions while in office, should not proceed immediately. That strategy created time and space to respond to legal challenges, gather evidence, and prepare defenses. With the Supreme Court's decision, those protections no longer exist in the same way. Cases that were stalled can now proceed, and prosecutors have clearer authority to move forward. Experts point out that this does not automatically mean convictions or penalties. Instead, it means that Trump's legal defenses will have to focus more directly on facts, evidence, and individual case law rather than procedural shields. Any delays previously available through claims of immunity or privilege are significantly reduced, and the timeline for legal proceedings will move faster. This ruling is not only about one individual, it also sets a precedent for how former presidents and other high-ranking officials may be treated in the future. By clarifying the limits of immunity, the Supreme Court ensures that future office holders cannot rely on similar broad protections to delay or obstruct justice. Legal scholars see this as a strengthening of the principle that no one in the United States is above the law. It reinforces public confidence in institutions and clarifies boundaries for executive power. In addition to criminal cases, the ruling may influence civil lawsuits, financial investigations, and state-level cases. Previously, Trump's team had argued that immunity could delay or limit these cases. Now, the same principle that applies to criminal proceedings extends to other legal actions, allowing courts to move forward without ambiguity. Following the ruling, multiple legal cases that were previously paused or delayed may now advance simultaneously. These include federal investigations into election-related actions, civil financial lawsuits, and state-level prosecutions. Experts have emphasized that this alignment creates a rare legal situation. Cases that are usually staggered and separated can now proceed in a more coordinated way. Each proceeding reinforces the others, creating what some analysts call a compounding effect of legal accountability. The ruling also affects strategic decisions. For example, lawyers must now carefully consider how responses to court orders could affect multiple cases at once. Submitting evidence or statements in one case may influence other ongoing proceedings. This adds a layer of complexity that was not present before. Legal professionals describe it as a system that now works in alignment rather than in sequence, meaning that the law is moving forward efficiently and without the delays previously available. A key part of this ruling concerns the limits of presidential immunity. While presidents may have certain protections while in office, these do not extend indefinitely after leaving office. The Supreme Court emphasized that claims of immunity do not cover private actions, personal conduct, or activities outside official duties. Similarly, executive privilege is not absolute. Communications and documents can still be subject to review, particularly when criminal conduct is alleged. This creates new opportunities for prosecutors to access evidence that was previously restricted or delayed. The ruling also clarifies procedural matters. Courts no longer need to pause cases based on arguments about immunity or privilege that are too broad. This reduces the ability to stall proceedings and ensures that justice moves forward in a timely manner. Civil cases, such as financial fraud or defamation lawsuits, are also impacted, as claims relying on immunity or privilege are now limited. Because delays are reduced, important dates in multiple legal proceedings will now carry increased significance. Experts point to several key events in the upcoming months, including court hearings in federal and state cases, civil enforcement deadlines, and procedural deadlines for document submissions. Each of these events will have consequences for both criminal and civil cases. By removing procedural barriers, the Supreme Court has effectively cleared the path for legal systems to act without the pauses that Trump's team previously relied on. Legal observers note that these deadlines create a situation where actions in one case can influence others. Evidence submitted in one proceeding may be relevant in another. Depositions and witness testimony may have broader effects. This interconnectedness means that legal accountability is no longer isolated, but is reinforced across multiple cases. Beyond the immediate legal impact, this ruling has broader implications for how executive power is understood in the United States. By clarifying that no one is above the law, the Supreme Court strengthens institutional credibility. Future presidents, legal teams, and lawmakers now have a clearer understanding of boundaries and limitations. The decision reinforces the principle that the rule of law applies equally to all individuals, regardless of office or status. The ruling also demonstrates the resilience of the judicial system. By issuing a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court shows that legal reasoning and constitutional principles can guide outcomes even in politically charged cases. This helps maintain public confidence in the ability of institutions to act independently of partisan pressure. Looking ahead, there are several potential scenarios. 1. Cases proceed and accountability is achieved. Trials advance, evidence is tested, and courts render decisions based on law. This scenario strengthens institutional trust and demonstrates the rule of law. 2. Cases face procedural challenges or delays. Even with this Supreme Court's ruling, lower courts and legal teams may still navigate complex procedural matters. While accountability is possible, timelines may extend, and public attention may fluctuate. 3. Broader legal debates emerge. As cases advance, questions about executive power, immunity, and privilege may continue to arise. These debates could influence future legislation and judicial interpretation. The Supreme Court's ruling is a landmark moment. It does not convict or accuse anyone, but it removes key legal protections that had delayed accountability for Donald Trump. The decision sets a precedent for how former presidents are treated under the law and strengthens the principle that no one is above the law. Legal proceedings that were previously paused or slowed can now move forward, creating a complex, interconnected timeline of accountability. For observers, the key takeaway is clear. The legal system is functioning as designed. Procedural barriers that once delayed action have been removed, and the institutions of law are applying rules consistently, regardless of political considerations. This moment reinforces the principles of American democracy and highlights the importance of accountability, transparency, and institutional integrity. Disclaimer: this script is based on publicly available legal information and expert analysis. It does not constitute legal advice or assert guilt or innocence. Scenarios described are for informational purposes and reflect potential legal outcomes rather than confirmed events.